Good morning.
Good morning. How you diddling?
All right, all right.
Good.
Yeah, yeah.
Ticking
Sun's
along.
coming today.
Yeah, it's a bit better than yesterday, where the heating was on full blast most of the day. Crazy. What's happening? Anything exciting?
Not really. Not at the moment. I'm plodding on, as it were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a seminar on tomorrow evening. I've got a few people on that, which is good. But,
that would be good.
Hotel management reports.
We're going to start doing we had a hotel cost connect team session last week, and we came up with this. We're going to do a campfire clinic where you just get 6 people on just chatting, just about the industry and all the different things, etc. We got into this long-winded discussion about how accosted people get with regards to scanning the NHS app and how overzealous people can be, and how you could really make it a lot of fun. Congratulations, you're the 100th winner, kind of thing. You get to scan the app, all that. But it's just, hospitality just seems to have lost it at the moment.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I was in a place at the weekend, and they had an app, and every time you ordered something, you had to put the credit card number in again. So it didn't save it or anything. It was like, it's like almost put you off ordering anything more because you had to get the credit card out again.
Here we go. I know. And the thing is, it's all these systems and stuff. It's almost like no one's bothered testing them. It's like, we'll put them in and we won't actually think about what the customer experience is at the other end. We won't even try it and whatever. I know when I've developed websites and stuff, we've tested it to the nth degree, and I still test stuff over and over and over again, just in case anything's adjusted or tweaked, etc. But there's an awful lot of stuff. And why should they? Why should hospitality operators be experts at implementing technical solutions?
Yeah, this is it. That's why you have the technical people.
Yeah, but then you need that interface between the technical people and the customer. I saw a thing.
That's what I usually end up doing. I've always ended up doing that in the hotels I've worked for, because you've got a system. For example, when we installed SAP in a hotel, within a week, I was actually telling the guys from SAP how we were going to use it, because they knew how their system worked, but they didn't actually know how best to apply it to the actual working operation of like hotel accounts and all the rest of it. So
the best example of that I've seen over the last few days is Zycus, who do procure-to-pay systems for hospitality. They announced they did an article, the 25 must-see KPIs for procurement. And I went back to them and said, at what point do you have 25 KPIs? If you've got 25 KPIs, you've missed the number one KPI, which is prioritization. 25. It's technical guys producing things for hospitality, but not realizing how it's going to be used in hospitality.
Yeah,
there's a lot of it going on at the moment. So we're all going to live with it for the next few years. Unfortunately, our experiences in hospitality are not going to be that hot. But what an opportunity if you get it right.
Yeah. No, I've seen a few who've got things right. So
it's still 50-50 though, and 50-50 is not good enough. It's the industry needs to kind of almost take a step back and just think, okay, if I was on the receiving end of this, well, how would I feel? But still, we crack on.
on with the changes that will no doubt happen over the next year or so.
Well, most of the stuff with traffic we're getting in the clinic at the moment is recruitment and HR related.
Yeah. It's a real toughie, because they've not only cut off the access to the European people and all the rest of it, but they've actually made it very difficult for example, I asked about whether you could set up an agency, do all the recruitment, and then subcontract these people to independent hotels, because at the end of the day, one hotel is not going to pay a license for a couple of chefs. And it turns out you can't do that because you've got to the person who contracts them has got to manage them.
Yeah.
So you can't even kind of work on the basis of some kind of agency to get people from abroad. So and honestly, I don't think there's enough people in this country willing to work in the industry.
Well, the official ONS stats are is that hospitality has lost 15% of its staff going back. So reverse that round and say hospitality has retained 85% of staff that's still here. So it's the 85%, and the 15% is no small amount. That's a killer.
Yeah.
But and especially in some locations where obviously it's highly likely that they were 100% of the workforce. But the 85% remains still a massive amount, and you know, they just have to keep chipping away, I'm afraid.
I think once places like London open up, it's going to get even worse, because I think at the moment, possibly people are sort of like moving around the country, leaving the big cities where they're sort of like the hotels haven't opened up yet, and getting jobs in other parts of the country. And then once London opens up and it needs its workforce back, we'll be even more caught short for people. But we'll see.
I'd love to fast forward 10 years, see what's going to happen.
Well, that's what we've done already, according to people working from home and all the rest of it, is fast forward 10 years from what, you know, is this whole idea of having people working remotely and not having such a massive office spaces is what they predicted would happen in 10 years time. So in some ways we've fast forwarded some of it and not the others. But
morning,
Hi, good morning.
Morning, Simon.
Good morning.
Azir.
Morning.
Hi, Benny.
Morning.
Surprise, surprise, we were just talking about recruitment. As if there isn't anything else to talk about in the hospitality industry right now. How is everybody?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Very well, thank you.
Good, thanks.
Yes, recruitment is a hot topic everywhere. I think if you go into hospitality, it's it's interesting. The few operators I know in my area, that's physical area in Streatham, that they've got restaurants and they've got a dark kitchen. The dark kitchen has not opened up because they've moved everyone over to restaurants, and it's a real big problem. This one particular group I'm thinking of, they had 6 sites, they've reduced to 4. They can't open 2 of their sites, so they've gone down to 2, and potentially they're looking at closing down completely. So it's a big problem. Not to sound negative on a Tuesday morning, but it's a challenge, absolute challenge.
Yeah, as some people say, we've brought it on ourselves because we've had it so lucky over the years of sort of like being able to just take on staff on a low wage, and there's always somebody there to take the place and everything. And now actually, we have to actually fight to get the staff.
We've done it over 50 years. I mean, you know, let's think about the fact that we haven't moved prices on in the industry to the customer, sorry, and then we've kind of paid for it with reduced staffing and reduced wage structures. And so we've created in many cases, a not much fun place to work in a lot of cases. There's always great examples, let's be honest, and we've all come from that. But I wrote yesterday that, you know, we've got to remember what it was like when, you know, if we started on a day in a job and there were 3 others that started on the day with us way back in hospitality, where are those other 3 now and why did they leave? You know, what happened?
But I think Austin, you make a point. I think it's also sustainability. So somebody who is paying, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 pounds an hour to a front of house waiter is now potentially paying 15 pounds. And I've heard stories like that. I mean, as a business, is that sustainable? Especially when you're not getting footfall coming through in the way that you're expecting it to come through. So it's a chicken and egg situation, isn't it? I posted a couple of weeks ago about, having fixed costs that are running right across the graph, and then your sales increasing. You know, at that point, that's a point where you break even, and then obviously after that is profit. It's a well-known model, but you know, when your costs have jumped, and then you've got to make up that sale. It's a tough ask in an industry that is so skeptical, and consumers are skeptical also. You know,
I think the service side, I think, not to say it lightly, but I think COVID has done hotels a favor, because with the introduction of all these apps that people can order themselves, or their waiters can be more mobile because they've got the tablet and they're rushing around and everything. The introduction of that just at this moment means that it kind of eased a bit of the labor, and the people they have got, they can afford to pay them a bit more because they become the host. It's not a case of he's just taking the order. He's actually talking to the client. He's actually creating an ambience, to say, suggesting things. And I think the movement in the front of house will be towards that sort of atmosphere. But on the kitchen, I don't think they've invented a robot yet that can, or an application that can cook eggs and.
It won't be long. Won't be long, Robin. But maybe what you were just saying about the front of house people, maybe that creates a better work environment as well, a more enjoyable environment. You know.
I think it certainly adds ownership to the work, doesn't it? If you're engaging in front of house and with customers that way, you take ownership of something that you wish to belong to and be part of. Certainly. Just on a note, and Simon, I don't mean to embarrass you, but it's Simon's birthday today, everyone. So happy birthday, Simon!
Happy birthday,
Simon.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Austin.
Wrong chords anyway. Wrong.
Good effort, though. Very good effort.
If it's any consolation, I was certainly about to sing in the wrong chords, so that's a guarantee.
All of them, just not in the right order. That's the thing.
So, anybody got any good news stories from the past 2 weeks? It's not to do with recruitment. Oh, well.
I can share some. So this week I've been looking at 2019, 2020 and 2021 year-to-date statistics, and my mind is absolutely blown. But what I've been really heartened to see is that the pickup is genuinely happening, and every way I cut it, the pickup was happening quicker than we thought. Now that is the caveat on that is for UK and Ireland, and that is, I think, therefore largely domestic. But the figures, I hope that people on property here are perhaps seeing that pickup in domestic business moving forward. Is anybody else seeing that pickup quicker than expected?
Just you, Kat. It's just you. You've just oppressed everybody else because you're the only one with any good news.
But we've got. I mean, we have quite a few hoteliers that are on this call regularly, and obviously we only see the business that comes through the pipes that we connect. But I was up on Mull, the Isle of Mull, a couple of weeks ago, and every restaurant was booked out to a good level that they were happy with. Every all the accommodation was running at a really high occupancy.
I
actually feel sorry for.
Oh, sorry, Robin. I was going to say, I think the answer is the hoteliers are not on this call anymore. They're dealing with all the volume.
Well,
whilst I haven't been looking necessarily at hotels, I've been doing a little bit of work on a glamping site for somewhere, as opposed to working on the glamping site. Perished the thought of actually doing anything, but some study work on it, and this is just staggering in terms of rates that can be commanded, and now absence of availability through some of these sites, which look fantastic. It's absolutely astounding. So what a market to be in at the moment. really, really quite interesting.
I actually feel sorry for the continent because, I mean, I work with a hotel in Portugal and the bookings is like a roller coaster. Every time the government here announces something different, they start to lose bookings, and then they say something else, and the bookings come flooding in again, and it's you know it's they don't know whether they're coming or going half the time. So until they actually get to the day when they've got it's actually D-Day, then and they know actually yes we have got so many bookings, but yeah, interesting times. Anyway, I think we've got as many we're going to get today. So I'll start with my presentation. Hope everybody enjoys it. It's probably a little bit of a strange one, but it's kind of what I've picked up, and it probably won't just help hotels. It'll help people in general as well. So talking about efficiencies. I'll just share my screen if I can. Okay, so admin and finance efficiencies for hotels. So people often ask me, what do finance do? They cost a lot of money, but what do the actual finance do? Is your finance department an efficient finance department? And I'll let you into a secret here that not many financial controllers or accountants will tell you. And the secret is it's easy to find things to administer. It's much harder to decide what's actually necessary and cut out the wheat from the chaff, as they would say. And it is very true. You can come across a lot of very loaded administration functions in hotels, and I suppose in any business. And at the end of the day, when you actually start looking through what they do, you actually start to think, well, actually, is this actually productive for my business? Does it do something? I often try to make a finance department as efficient as possible, so they actually concentrate on actually analyzing the figures and giving something back to the business by actually identifying, profitability sessions and stuff. So why me? Well, I suppose in the 25 years I've been in hotel financial control, I've always looked to improve the efficiency of departments in any hotel I've worked with, and a lot of the startups I've done, I've put in very streamlined systems of administration, just because I believe it's the way it should be done. And as a business, I work remotely with independent hotels, and so I have to have an efficient format and quite a to be able to ensure that I can provide that financial control service to all my clients. So the golden rules, as you'd like, that I've always applied is, if you have to repeat a task 3 times, you should be looking for some way to automate it. There's often cases where people go through the same process to create a journal or something, and they don't actually think about just creating some kind of template and whatever. Every process should have a benefit. And it sounds daft, but actually, often if you sit down and look at all the processes that are going on in an administration department, you actually say, yeah, but what is the benefit? And that's the third part of it, is look at the end goal of what you want to achieve from your processes. Because sometimes you go round and round in circles to get to an end point, when actually, if you'd looked at what you actually want at the end and gone backwards, you might have come up with a much more efficient solution. So very important there. I apply, I say, if you want clean accounts, you need soap. So systems, make the most of available systems to streamline your workflows. There's lots of systems out there now that can help to make a process very efficient. I use a lot of them. Organization, make sure your admin and finance function is organized. You'd be surprised by the amount of these departments that, because they're sort of like isolated on their own, they have the liberty to become disorganized because nobody actually knows what they're doing anyway. Automation, like I said before, wherever possible, try to make a process automated, try to make it that it flows through with minimum manual input. And always make clear that the processes are clear to everyone. There's nothing worse than trying to close a month end when the people who have to give you the information to close that month end actually don't know what they're supposed to be giving you, or don't remember, or whatever. So it's always very important that any process within administration is clear to everybody, and why it's being done. So let's start with something really simple. Filing. Is it a necessary evil, or is it a great way to waste time? I mean, we've all seen this in the admin office. Hundreds of them lined up on shelves, filing. Have you ever thought how long it takes to take a piece of paper, put a hole in it, look for the right place in the file, in the actual file, and then put the file back on the shelf? Yeah, it's a great way of wasting time if it's not necessary. So take examples. For example, in hotels, they often have like the cashiering revenue management function, and they get a load of reports. They get cashier reports, they get reports from their POS, they get reports from the front office system, they get the envelopes for the cashiering, and it's kind of you keep them for comfort, at least for 6 months, in case something's went wrong and you have to go back. But there's no obligation to keep those documents. They're not one of the statutory items that have to be kept by law. It's just they're kept out of comfort. So then another one is food invoices. Now most companies these days, most suppliers invoice on supply, invoice on delivery, and you get a pile of invoices every day, probably covered in bits of food and whatever else the chef might have had on his hands when he receives the delivery. And these do have to be kept for 5 years. But once you've logged, if you haven't got a system that's automatic, that all the orders go through and then the invoice comes through on the system as a copy, so you can keep that copy. Once that invoice is the actual invoice has been logged on some kind of system, and you've taken note, if necessary, of any prices to be put into your cost management system, sort of like spreadsheets or whatever, you will probably never look at that invoice again in your lifetime. But the auditors have a principle where they go for the big invoices. So they're never going to grab your fish invoice from Friday afternoon. They'll be looking for the invoice for your lift contract or something like that. So these sorts of things, I mean, it gets to a stage where you think, is this worth going through some kind of situation of scanning them and putting them into a system, and perhaps that system, you know, on all this sort of thing. So my humble answer to a lot of filing is the good old brown envelope with a gusset, so you hold plenty of documents. But you'll find if these items, you're never going to look at them again, and one day you're going to have to get rid of them, what is better than to put them in an envelope? You can write at the top of the envelope what it is, put it in a filing cabinet, or put it straight into a storage box and have it nice and neatly lined up there. The day you have to get rid of them, you just give the storage box to the shredding company, and you haven't touched that document once again in the whole of its lifetime. Saves an enormous amount of actual admin time. Something simple like that. And it sounds daft, but it does work. So obviously, that's the sort of things that you say, well, I'm never going to look at them and all the rest of it. There are other invoices and the other documents where, yes, you do want to look at them, in which case it's worthwhile making sure they're on some kind of computer system. Invoices is a good example. I mean, what I do with the companies I work for, I always set up a specific email for invoices at. I make sure everybody knows they should be sending their invoices there. I even put it on the purchase orders. You need to say, if you do not send your invoice by email to this invoice address, it may delay your payment. So it's amazing how quickly they get used to sending you the emails with the invoices. And then those invoices, when they arrive, you've got them in your this mailbox. You can always sort them into suppliers if you want to, but at the same time, you save that invoice onto your file server. somewhere on your system, and suddenly you have a backup of your documentation. It doesn't cost you anything more than an email license, and you're keeping your emails. You take 2 copies of it. Sorry, got a minute. A minute. I'm going to.
All right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't make fun of your store.
Hello. Can you hear me still? Okay. A bit of noise there. And that's very important as well. When you've got your filing and your storage online, make sure at least you have 2 copies, if not 3 copies. Like I say, I have the email copy, which might be by supplier folders, just to keep it a bit more organized. I have my main copy, and then I keep a backup on an external drive, so that you've always got that information, you never lose it. So carry on. So another thing about online storage, has anybody ever realized that the months aren't in alphabetical order? It's an interesting thing. How many times do you go to a folder and you whirl around for a second or two looking for that file? Actually, you want April, and it's at the beginning, not at the end. Oh yeah. It's funny, but if you actually put the date in reverse order on files and you go to that folder, you find your April straight away because you know it's the last one. Yeah. If you go your invoices and you put the date in reverse order on your invoices and you're looking for a particular date range, then you go straight to that date range because you know where they are, because they're in an order. And not only that, if you've got all your invoices in one big folder, yeah, no bothering with sorting into folders for suppliers or anything else. You have one main folder, and you make sure that when you save the invoice, you have the date in reverse order, the name of the supplier, and the invoice number. When you want to look for that invoice, you can look by supplier, because the wonders of Microsoft Search is you just put the name of the supplier in the top up there, and it comes up with all the suppliers' name or invoices. Or you put the date in the corner there, and suddenly you've got all the invoices from a certain date. And little things like that on an online system actually save a lot of time. Although you wouldn't think about it, it's actually a very efficient way of working with online documents. So when you're working with data, use systems wherever possible. I keep saying it, but it's very important. The more you can actually reduce manual contact, the better. And that's the third point there. Avoid human contact. Most of the errors are caused in accounts, and most of the errors caused in things are caused by human contact. You know, you may have a wonderful PMS system that logs your market segments and all the rest of it. But if somebody goes in and does a correction and doesn't bother to put the market segment of the original client, suddenly all your average spends for that market segment are out the window. How many times have I gone into a system for a hotel and looked at the geographic client base and found that so many clients come from Azerbaijan? It's really amazing. But why? Because the people on the human contact part of it has just said, I'll go for the first one on the list. You know, so wherever you can try and eliminate human contact and put systems in place and put controls in place, it actually makes it better. And with that in mind, it's often better to import and export information than having somebody transfer it from one place to another manually. Because if somebody does it manually, they might mix up their numbers. You know, we've all done it. We've put 4-3 instead of 3-4, whatever. You might get rounding errors. So wherever possible, try to automate, try to put in systems, try to use imports and exports. And if you are doing anything that can do, for example, involves an Excel document that changes the information, always put in a warning. You know, Excel is wonderful. You can put a little expression that says, if this doesn't equal that, say error. And it's a very simple expression, but it pops up at the top of your page when you're using the Excel document. You go, I've got an error in my document. It doesn't balance. Let's go back and see where it is. And those little rounding errors are what take so much time. When the number of times I've wasted time putting a journal into a counting system and it's out by 1p. And I've got to find the 1p that I've put the wrong figure in, or because of the rounding and the way it's come out of printed out, it's not done it. So make sure you get that content, and make sure the information is reliable. So any hotel should have these, as far as I'm concerned, this is like the rule for making sure that there's an efficiency within hotels. First of all, make sure your point of sale is linked to your PMS. You may sound a daft expression because most people do have that now, but I have come across hotels, in fact, one recently, where the point of sale was totally disconnected from the PMS, which meant that they were then typing their bills into the PMS to charge them, yes. So always make sure there's that connection. And I always make sure that that information is exported into some kind of revenue control to make sure that what you're getting from your covers and what you're getting from your PMS actually makes sense. Because accounts is like a computer. If you put rubbish in, rubbish will come out, and then you'll spend more time trying to analyze the rubbish to figure out why it's like it is, than actually you would have spent in the first place just making sure it went in correctly. Yeah, people get over. It's like I said a minute ago about the average spends on the market mixes. People get over worried about an average rate in a certain market has gone down, and then actually when they look back, it's because somebody's put a correction through on a wrong market segment, or people automatically accept the covers that are taken on, and then they put it into their accounts and everything, and it turns out that somebody put 22 covers on a table of 2 instead of 2, and it knocks out your average spends totally. So there are certain instances in your life where you have to make sure that what you're putting into your accounts and into your systems is checked and is correct. And obviously, once you've got that revenue information, you send it off to your account system, and you also put it into some kind of forecasting system, because let's face it, if you've got it automatically there, all your average spends and all your information about how you've produced a day, then it should go into your forecast and into your daily report. And these are systems which is there's ways of doing this is copy and paste. Literally, I'm not touching it with my hands. I'm just copying and pasted it. So you don't get any errors in the figures, and you get daily reports which are full of information, and a forecast which is constantly updating itself. And I've talked about forecasts and that in the past, and it's trying to find ways of literally just taking the information, pasting it somewhere, let something do it to it, and then if necessary, copy it, paste it somewhere else, but without actually interfering with it yourself. And then these, again, if you've got a forecast and it's in some kind of system where you can pull a CSV, you should be able to upload that CSV into your payroll control system. Yes, your payroll control system. I don't believe there is a space for somebody doing HR and payroll manually anymore. It's got to be a system, an online system. Because it automates everything, and it gets the people doing the bits who know about what's happened. It gets your departmental managers actually check whether the people have worked, because they know, rather than the HR person who's sat in an office and actually doesn't know who's in the building. And likewise, your forecast information, your actual information should be going through to some sort of purchasing system where it's telling you your food flash, how much you're spending, or what your food cost of sales is. What are you purchasing your cleaning supplies in line with the number of rooms you're actually occupying, so that when you get to the end of a month, you're not suddenly got a high expense or high KPI. Yeah. And then finally, again, all these systems, they should feed into the accounts almost automatically. I mean, even if it's just a case of pulling out a report and importing it straight into your account system. It's what I call automatic, because you're not having to manually enter a single figure or a single document. It all just flows through. And finally, the most important for me is make sure you've got some way of producing your reports automatically as well. I mean, one of the tricks of the trade of hotel accounts is that when your covers go into your accounting system and you put in a controlling balance of minus, so if you put in 10 covers here, you put in -10 on your control. What does that mean? It means that not only are you keeping a historic record of all your statistics, so you can go back and refer to them in one place, but it also means that if you pull out your trial balance, or you link your reporting to your accounting system, you can create a full P&L automatically. All it is take that data, open up the Excel document, and hey presto, we've got our average spends for our food and beverage, we've got our KPIs, we've got this, we've got the other, and we haven't had to look for different spreadsheets around the business to tell us what those figures are to put them into some kind of report. So it's very important. And these days, I mean, even your basic Sage, for example, it doesn't have it, but you can work around the system. But these days, a lot of what they call the medium-sized accountancy systems actually have the ability to link into the Excel and draw, or for the Excel to link into the accounts and automatically draw that information out. So you can have all the benefits of Excel, but you actually have updated accounts. So look for all those ways to automate the process of your admin. That's what I'm basically saying here. Just a second. So payroll systems. I mean, like I said before, I recommend systems, payroll. There's systems out there now that will help you do your recruitment process, save your employee files, helping you to stop GDPR, allow you to do your HODs to do their scheduling, and then control the TNA and compare that to your forecast sales, so that you're within your budget payroll. They'll even process your payroll and put in some online training for them. And of course, they'll export the information to your account system. So that whole process that then becomes, yes, people are dealing with it, but then it's all kind of automated, and they have to stay within the rules, as it were, of the system, which means there's less errors and it's more efficient. Purchasing is the same. A good purchasing system will have your purchase order system, your delivery notes. It will have a way of checking those invoices, some of them automatically, telling you if there's something wrong, and if not, just saying it's okay. Have that export to the accounts, have a way of comparing to your forecast sales, have a way of doing your menu engineering, it all in one, so that the information comes feeding through, and you're not looking for that information, and that's what makes it more efficient. So when you're adding stuff to an account software, I once started or took over accounts at one hotel where the previous financial controller had entered every single purchase as purchase. Nothing on the description whatsoever. Didn't say cleaning supplies. Didn't say lift maintenance for May, or nothing. Just purchase. Every single time I wanted to investigate something from the past, as far as on the P&L, I had to go back to the invoice. Yeah. Whereas if you train people to make sure that they label what's going into your accounting system in an informative way, when you look back at your accounting system and you're trying to figure out why you spent so much here or what happened here, you just click on it and says, oh, that was it. Yes, I remember now. I ordered some extra equipment for this event, whatever. Yeah. So always make sure that all the way through your systems, it's being labeled. Use the quickest method to get from A to B. It's like I said at the beginning, make sure you know what your end goal is, because sometimes you might end up taking a route around the houses to achieve something, because you haven't really fixed on what your end goal is. Yeah. Make the most of inputs. Use manual entry as a last resort in any accounting system. I have to do the month end for several hotels in question of days, because if it's not there in 5 working days, it's not worth having it. And I have all the templates set up for the hotels for all the different things that need to go in, and I just literally copy paste, check it into the system. Yeah, because I know what needs to go in, I know what I need to check. I have controls within the Excel documents if necessary to check those items, and I just import it straight in. And there's hardly any manual touching of that information unless I want to alter something, and then I have a control to tell me that I've altered it correctly. So it's all about doing all these things to make sure that you're as efficient as possible in your administration. If you are thinking about those food invoices, what I do with a lot of my hotels is the food invoices, if they haven't got a proper food purchasing system, then I have an Excel document that can be quickly filled in, because the wonder of Excel is that actually, if you start to type the name of a supplier and they're already on the list, it will come up automatically. 10 seconds, you've entered the supplier name, you put in the amount, you copy the description from whichever one you want, and suddenly you've got an invoice. Those invoices, I can check them in 10 minutes and I can upload them into my accounting system automatically. And it's a damn sight quicker, I can tell you, than trying to enter invoices one by one manually. Look for ways, always. Excel has a wonder of things. It has pick lists, so you can pick your supplier name, or the autocopy I just mentioned. It has ways of looking up. So if the mind of your person who's entered it is like, is it standard tax or is it not? Because they can't get further than that, then tell them to put in standard and then make it look up the actual tax code you need to go into your accounting system. It's thinking about ways that you make it really easy for the people who are entering the data, and you behind the scenes put in all the bits and pieces so that you have a copy that actually can go into your accounting system, and all you have to do is just whip it back up. So there's a lot of ways you can think. And like I say with this, which is quicker, having somebody fill in those invoices in an Excel spreadsheet, or having them scan every single invoice one by one and make sure that they've linked correctly and the invoice has gone in the invoice slot. And it's sometimes being advanced actually takes you back in time. So make the most of the available workforce. Yeah, I know I go on about this, and some people won't agree with this. I know about this, but you have a reception team there that are there probably 24 hours a day if you have a night auditor. Yeah, and there will be times when they're not actually doing much, unfortunately. Yeah, things like data reports, they know how the finance, the PMS works. They know how things work. If you set up something very simple, they can produce your daily report automatically every morning, or even in the night when there's not as soon as the night audit's been done. The cashiering, they're used to dealing with money, so why not have them do the cashiering, get it ready for the bank, and then and it's dealt with. It's somebody. Yeah, basic data entry like the spreadsheet I just showed you for the invoices. If they've got a quiet period in the afternoon, they can just flick away at those invoices. And then they can tell the chef if his food cost is online or not straight away. And the worst of all is the sales ledger. But I took over a hotel and they had 1 million on the sales ledger, 1 million of debt on the sales ledger. And I went through that 1 million sales ledger and I recovered it all. And I found that 90% of the errors on that sales, of the reasons why they didn't get that money, was because reception hadn't followed the procedure correctly. They hadn't put the purchase order or the reference number on the invoice. They hadn't looked at the backup and realized that they could actually bill it straight to a credit card without putting it to City Ledger. They hadn't put the right documentation with the invoice to pass it to somebody else so they could send it. All these errors, if you put the reception manager in charge, I can guarantee that within a month, you won't have any of those errors. because he's the one who's going to have to sort out the problem. And if he has to sort out the problem, he'll make sure his team are doing the things right. So often it's a case of thinking who is involved in this process, who's actually causing the problems and who can actually resolve the problems more easily. And by doing things like that, you suddenly realize you don't have an admin department because everybody else in the building is doing your administration, you know, and then you can have somebody like me sat on the end of a telephone actually giving you a result. But, you know, it's often a case of hotels, they think they have to have people sat in the back office doing all these things when actually systems and the people they've already got within the building. And let's face it, if you have to take on somebody half a day a week extra to do admin, wouldn't it be better to take on a receptionist half a day extra a week? So you've got more cover on reception. So when that guest comes at a particular time, you've actually got somebody there to greet them and to talk to them. So, you know, all these ways you can rearrange what I would say is the typical, the old-fashioned way of thinking about administration within hotels. And that's it basically. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've all found something interesting.
Robin, I just wanted to come in here. It's very interesting. You talk about systems and integration of systems. I think it's as many people in this forum know that it is where things are moving to. And out of my own experience, one of the things, and it's a real oversight that people don't actually see, is that as quickly as possible, move all your systems online. And when I say online, means on the cloud. Yeah. Don't keep anything on premises because it opens yourself to viruses. And when you've got information that sits that you need to go back to for the last 4 years, for example, invoices or your customer list, if you get a virus that hits your system that's on-prem and you haven't backed it up, which does happen regularly because, you know, to have an IT support person is expensive. It opens you up to the risk of losing all your data. And yeah. One of the things that I've learned in my experience, because that's happened to me, is that move over to the cloud as quickly as possible. It's the safest place to be. They do automatic backups. Also, a lot of the technology now on the cloud is integrated. So you have accounting packages like Xero and CRM systems and other systems that all integrate very easily, can be done. And you know they've made it idiot-proof virtually. It's just a couple of clicks and it connects. Yeah. So that's out of my own experience. Is move over to cloud-based systems as quickly as possible as a business. And it's more efficient. I mean, and you can work remotely off your laptop from anywhere.
This is it. Because I have to work remotely with my clients, I basically have everything on a SharePoint, which can be, you can create a direct access with it on any of the computers. So you just have the information on the SharePoint, which is obviously backed up by Microsoft themselves. And I keep a hard copy of that every so often. I have it on the emails because again, I actually, on my computer, I have very little software because it's all on the cloud, but it means that I know it's safe.
Yeah. And another point is interesting is that a lot of supply businesses now and clients like hotels and restaurants can actually demand this, is that they need to send invoices over that are signed by the chef or the delivery person. A lot of systems now do have that facility. So when a delivery note comes in, usually it's signing on glass. So there's a pad that the person receiving the order signs, and then an invoice comes in at a later point that could go to the accounts department. You can direct that invoice as a landing pad anywhere within the business. That is a signed document. So it's not, you know that the person signed it, signed, dated, it's there, and then move it across to wherever you want to file it electronically within the business, and put that onus on the supplier. The supplier needs to, because that's and that reduces your cost also.
Yeah, good. Right, I've run a bit on, I'm afraid. I talk a lot when I do my presentations. Where is Sally? Sally,
I'm here.
There you go. Right, let's move on quickly to Natasha's law, because it's a serious issue that's obviously coming into law later on this year, and I think it's important that everybody understands the implications of it.
Okay.
So if you'd just like to share your screen, I've made sure it's available. There we go. Perfect.
Okay. That's it. Okay, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for asking me to join you today. My name is Sally Trice. I'm a consultant and trainer in food safety, and I work very closely with Food Allergy Aware. And I'm here today, as Robin said, to talk to you about Natasha's law. Just a bit about the background here. Natasha was allergic to sesame, and her tragic death happened in 2016 when she purchased a baguette from Pret a Manger, which contained sesame flour. And allergen information was available about the product, and Pret did nothing wrong at all. And they were complying with the regulations, of course, but Natasha bought the baguette and was taken seriously ill on a flight out of Heathrow and subsequently died as a result of a severe reaction to sesame. And at the inquest, the coroner did highlight that there had previously been several complaints to Pret a Manger about sesame in the flour, and these had not been acted upon. But subsequently, Pret have changed all of their labelling systems, and they have introduced a very robust system procedure which captures all food safety issues, and they're acted upon on a regular basis, and they have monthly meetings, etc. It's interesting to consider how a business actually does capture near misses, because if that information had been acted upon earlier, one would hope that Natasha would not have died. And so how does your business actually capture these near misses? And one thing that Food Allergy Aware is doing later on this year is we're launching a campaign to raise business awareness of near miss reporting. And if you're interested in finding more, then please come and have a look at our website on the events page. So changes in the law then, the timeline, what actually happened? Well, Natasha's parents started a campaign which involved the government, of course, and Michael Gove, and it was designed to introduce improved labelling on foods which are pre-packed for direct sale. And there was a consultation period, and Parliament enacted the law in September 2019. It becomes law, of course, in October of this year. And the category of which category of non-pre-packed a food falls into depends on where and when it is packed in relation to the point at which it is offered for sale. So sometimes a business will pre-pack foods on the premises in anticipation of peak time. And this, from October the 1st, will be classified as PPDS. But otherwise, the food is packed at the customer's request, and this is not PPDS. Okay. So for non-pre-packed food, there is no requirement to label an individual product. But the allergen information must be readily available. Okay. So current allergen labeling then, you can you must have notices, information, obviously accurate and verifiable information on the allergens present in the product. But from the 1st of October, PPDS food must be labelled. Now, the FSA on their website has a very, very good, very interesting section on technical guidance for more information. So I would recommend that you actually have a look at that. So what is pre-packed for direct sale? Well, it's food that is packed before being offered for sale by the same food business to the final consumer. So on the same premises or on the same site. So for example, if you are if you have a central production unit within an airport or a station, and then you have sites within the terminal or shopping centre, etc., then that will be PPDS. On other premises, if the food is offered for sale from a movable and or temporary premises, such as marquee, market stalls, mobile sales, vehicles, etc., and if the food is offered for sale by the same food business who packed it, that is PPDS. It does not include food packed at a consumer's request, food not in packaging, or food in packaging that can be altered without opening or changing the packaging. Okay. And by the way, if you would like copies of this presentation, it will be available after the event. We will get in touch with Robin, and I'm sure he will circulate it. Yeah, because there's quite a lot to take in, obviously, with all of this. So an example then, cheese and pickle sandwich. There you see that the content of the sandwich is clearly described. It must be descriptive and inform the customer of the true nature of the food. Customary names such as BLT can be used, and where names are prescribed in law, they must be used. And this mainly applies to food containing certain seafood, fish, and meat ingredients. The interesting thing here about the ingredients is all the ingredients of the food must be included in descending order of weight, as recorded at the time of their use in the manufacture of food. If the product contained any 14 allergens, of course, they must be clearly highlighted on the listed ingredients. And the way they are highlighted is, again, quite clear. It's in the FIC guidelines, and we need to make sure that they're in bold type, capital letters, contrasting colors, or underlined, etc. So the allergens need to be clearly identifiable. So the labeling itself, how the labels are presented, the information must appear on the package or on a label attached to the package, and it must be easily visible and clearly legible. So on the outside of the product and not obscured in any way. So it must not be difficult to read. Labels can still be handwritten as long as they meet the requirements of being easily visible and clearly legible. And that too, many operators may cause a problem. And so, of course, there are many, many alternatives for printed labels. So yes, software solutions labeling programs with printers could be used, as well as pre-printed packaging, of course. But businesses may want to plan for any incidents that may occur, such as malfunctions, and they may wish to have some pre-printed labels ready to go in case of these circumstances. And again, on the Food Standards Agency website, there's a very interesting decision tree that you can follow that will give you, you know, the idea, is it PPDS or isn't it? And it's a useful tool to have in mind. And also, of course, the Food Standards Agency do a very good training package for food allergies. It has been recently reviewed, and it's certainly what we would consider a basic training for food allergies. It isn't by any means the best, but it's certainly very useful. You can do it online, and staff have had a basic grounding. But obviously there are different levels of training that are needed. So PPDS then, here's an example: pre-packed food packed by one business and supplied to another business, or packed by the same business at a different site. Pre-packed food. Label on the package, pre-packed. Pre-packed for direct sale, PPDS. Food which is packaged at the same place it is offered or sold to consumers and is in this packaging before it's ordered or selected. And this would also include items that you are giving away that are packaged. So freebies, if you like, they would also come under PPDS. Non-pre-packed, now we have the example of the cookie on the right there. Any food that is not in packaging or is packaged after being ordered by the consumer. The allergy information must be available, there must be quite clear signage, and that information must be accurate and verifiable. Okay, some more examples then. What is PPDS, what is not? Sandwiches packed by a food business and sold or offered from the same premises is PPDS. Fast food which is wrapped or packaged before a customer selects or orders it. Bakery products which are packaged before a customer selects them. Supermarket products which are produced and packed in store, for example, pizzas, rotisserie chicken. Pre-weighed and packed cheese and meats and baked products. Those are all PPDS. What is not PPDS then? Food not in packaging, i.e. loose food. Pre-packed food packaged at a different premises. Food packaged at the customer's request. And distance sales. So these will be your takeaways, etc. I'm going to come on to takeaways shortly. Deli choices. If you run a deli or a farm shop, you may need to review your labeling. If you make in-house and pre-wrap for selling, or if you wrap to sell at a farmer's market. So these are all considerations that you may need to make with regard to labeling. Okay. Distance selling then, new labelling requirements do not apply to PPDS food sold by means of distance selling, such as food which is purchased through the telephone or internet. Business selling PPDS food this way will lead to ensure that mandatory allergen information is available to the customer before they purchase the product and also at the moment of delivery. So this literally means that the allergen information needs to be with the food when it is delivered. So, and the takeaway market is a challenge, there's no doubt about it. And I've been tuning into quite a few conversations with environmental health officers, and they do find that the takeaway sector with regard to labelling and giving the correct information is quite a challenge. So be interesting to see how things evolve in this sector. So as a summary then, PPDS sandwiches placed into packaging by the food business and sold from the same premises. A cafe giving away packaged samples of a new range of cakes they've made on the same premises. A butcher who makes burgers or sausages, which are pre-packed to be sold on the same premises. And things like marinated products, you know, if they are doing pre-packed marinated tandoori chicken or anything of that nature, they would need to be labelled. Foods packaged and then taken by the same operator to their market stall to sell, PPDS. Foods packed by a food business to be sold in its retail units located within the same building complex as the premises where the food is packed, such as a train station, hospital, university, or holiday park. So they are all PPDS. So there are resources to help with these changes. As I mentioned, you've got the Food Standards Agency, which are very, very helpful, very useful. And of course, Food Allergy Aware is also offering help and support with a series of workshops that we are organising, and you can find all the details of those on our website. And we're also working with another company based in the north, because Food Allergy Aware is southern based. So we're working with Jack's Allergen Management in the north. And we are launching Hospitality Allergen Support UK. And so we can help with any queries which may be specific to your business. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I do hope that has been useful. If you have any questions, then perhaps you'd like to put them in the chat column and I will endeavour to answer them, or I can answer them after the presentation. I can answer them sort of, and Robbie can circulate, and perhaps that's the best idea.
Sally,
yeah,
it was interesting. I saw Azair sort of spark up when you started talking about food that was off premise deliveries, as it were.
Yeah.
If it's delivered and they have access to the allergens online, is that classified, or is that okay, or do they actually have to have something in the delivery to actually say that the allergens are?
Well, I mean, the legislation says at the time of delivery. Now, it's interesting you should say that, because we have done some research about it, and most people that order a takeaway have said to us, well, actually, there's never any allergy information on the package when we get it. You know, on the little cartons, it's never there. But the allergy information with regard to the product that you order must be available, certainly online. So, but actually labeling the product, it doesn't seem to be happening. And, you know, I have to hold my hand up here. I mean, we have said that it should be there, but it doesn't seem to be being enforced.
So if the packaging happened to have written on the packaging, allergens available at so-and-so.com, would that be enough? Because actually, if they really wanted to check the allergens, you're giving them the information where to check the allergens.
Yeah. And also, if you really wanted to check the allergens, you would check it in advance.
Yeah. But you know, it's just because I can imagine a lot of inclusive hotels that are now going into this whole delivery side of things. You know, it's somewhere where it could be quite a difficult.
Can I just come in here? It's interesting because the delivery platforms and where I'm looking at it, that's where all the information sits, and in theory, that's where this allergen information should also sit, supported by the product that's with the picture and the description. And I think Deliveroo does have an allergy section which needs to be filled in. So the information is there, and the consumer can read that. I agree with the point that Robin's making, that you can also put on a sticker on the packaging saying, look, if you want any information, go to this landing pad. Interestingly, the delivery platforms, they judge operators like us based on how quickly we can produce the product, get it out to the customer, and our rating is based on that. So imagine the pressure of getting we're struggling to get the food out on a very busy night where you have 70, 80 orders. Now you've got to also put in a label for packaging, and they may buy 6, 7, 8 different items. Logistically, it's just impossible to administrate. But I think the platforms need to play a much greater part in providing that information, so that the customer can actually see the product, read about it, and then decide whether they want that or not.
And it kind of backs up what I was talking about in my presentation as well. These days, it almost makes sense to have some kind of system for like food purchasing, just so that your supplier will put the allergens in, you'll do a menu, and automatically you'll have access to the allergens on your item without having to do the paperwork that could be involved in these things. So often sort of automating things is actually has so many other benefits which you sort of didn't think about when you actually when you go for these things. And that's what often has to be considered when you're looking for that end goal. Well, what is the end goal? Well, it's not just processing your purchases. It's not just knowing how much you're spending. It's actually knowing how much your what your allergens are, and all that sort of thing. So very good. Anybody else have any comments or questions? I don't know if
wouldn't it I mean, I can see the logistical problem that you have there, and wouldn't it just be easier if the containers in which the various things go into, if they just have, as you say, that a notice of the landing pad on it, because otherwise you're just going to go mad and at dispatch, because thinking, what different food types am I putting in here? So if you just put in there any information concerning the allergens can be found here, and give the link. I think that is the easier.
You're right. I think it's a matter of the consumer taking the opportunity to knowing what the ingredients hold before ordering. Obviously, when they order and then they see the label, that's after the event. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. If you look at our containers, we use essentially 3 different types of containers across 3 brands. So those containers are multi-purpose. They're being used for fries. They're being used for chicken wings. They're being used for, all sorts of other things, edamame and gyozas. We're using the same containers going across many different food offerings. So it's an interesting point you make. I think you want to try to capture that before the customer places the order, and that's the key here. As a credible operator, that's where I would sit, not after the event. I did before the event, and the delivery platforms need to be able to provide that space to be able to write down the information, and then the onus is on them. You can then say, look, if God forbid there's a problem that occurs, the information was there, we put it on, it's right, it's up to date. We've done our due diligence.
Yeah.
Robin, Azar, it's really fascinating listening to your perspective on this as a fast food takeaway producer, and I think that takeaway sector is going to be the really challenging element in terms of implementing this. It's interesting that I think as operators we'll always take the stance, take the viewpoint of well, the consumer, the customer has to take ultimate responsibility of informing us. The harsh reality is, though, that we know often they don't. I mean, I've had first-hand experience of a customer having a reaction to food items, and only then did they make me aware that they had allergies to certain ingredients. Now, you would think common sense would say if that customer knows that they've got the potential to have a quite severe reaction to certain foodstuffs, that they would tell us, but they don't. There is always that. In that particular case, it was an assumption. Customer assumed that we would use X variety of nuts in a recipe, and they had an allergy to Y variety of nuts. We happen to use Y in the recipe. Now, prime example of chef not sticking to standard recipes. So yeah, the business was exposed to a degree, but it's always that common sense rule. The reality is actually that common sense doesn't really protect us, does it? So I feel for you. I really do feel for you as to how this will be pursued. I can see a number of challenges, especially in the takeaway sector, and ultimately be interesting to get Sally's take on this. I think ultimately we'll see the responsibility land in the hands of the operator ultimately.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I agree with you. Chefs and I'm married to a chef, and we're not mind readers, about whether people have got allergies or not. We're just not. We need to be proactive. So we need to be asking the questions all the time, encouraging people to tell us, and I think that's part of it. It's a two-way thing, and but yeah, the takeaway sector has always been a challenge, certainly with the smaller units. you know, and actually consistency of ingredients and communication between, if you like, front of house, those taking the orders, and back of house. And the sector as a whole is a major challenge to us.
I think it's interesting you say that, Sally. I mean, I've been in last 30 years in supplying hotels and restaurants myself, and I understand the importance of keeping consistent products flowing through the clients, because ultimately they're relying on the information that's been provided by the supplier to you know, do the nutritionals and the allergens. You know, one of the things that I'm right on the ground in terms of the operation, and my brother he runs the back end, and I said, you do not change anything until you've spoken to me in terms of, if something's out of stock, it's out of stock, we take it off the menu. So the important thing is to say, okay, fine, we don't have that item, it's not available anywhere else, it has that deck, that allergen deck, that ingredients deck. If we can't find it, then we take it off the menu.
Correct.
And that's the beauty about dark kitchen business, is that you can virtually switch it off, switch that item off, and it's not visible until you get the product back in. And that's what we do. We do not replace ingredients with other ingredients. It's just not the right thing to do. And that's just purely experience as an operator coming into the sector. And I agree with you. I mean, the sector, as EHOs are dealing with all sorts of takeaways, you know, from little cafe mini shops to, you know, Indian, I mean, you know, and if you look at the area that I operate in SW16, and I'm just wondering, how do these places remain open, and how do they supply? Because, you know, I wouldn't buy anything from them, and it's a big problem. It's a challenge.
It is very much so, yeah.
Right, anybody else got any other questions, observations, or shall we round it up for today with a decent time of 11:06? Like Sally says, I'll put a copy of her presentation in the summary afterwards, and her contact details. So if anybody wants to talk to her more about that, then go right ahead. And obviously, if anybody wants to talk to me about making some efficiencies in somewhere. Anyway, another session over. Thank you for everybody for attending, and look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Robin. See you next time.
Thanks, Robin.
Bye.